So not only did Israel give them these weapons, but on some level, the Oslo Accords called for some kind of Palestinian police force, right?
If we don't realize this isn't a political war with political language, it is a fundamental religious war, a spiritual battle.
We continue to insist that the greatest mistake we've made probably in the past 80 years was when Trump said, turn around and don't finish off the Ayatollah.
Happy New Year and welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda, you should always be connected to the land and people of Israel. It's January 1st, 2026. Very happy to be with you all back together again. Joshua Waller, Ari Abramowitz, Jeremy Gimpel. And congratulations, guys. This is our 1 year anniversary of this special weekly round table podcast, even if occasionally it isn't quite every week, but we've done a lot together in the last year. And I hope the audience is going to be very happy to hear that we don't have plans of going anywhere this year. The goal and the plan is to keep continuing strong, get this podcast out every week this year, and continue shining the light from Zion. I think that's the goal. So I just say congratulations and happy New Year to all of you. I know this is like the fifth New Year, I think, right, in Israel. I don't know how many New Years the Jewish people have, but it's quite a few.
We got the New Year for trees coming up soon.
That's right. To be
That's right. Yeah. So anyways, we're diving into all kinds of stuff today. Obviously, the world knows that Iran is burning to the ground, and there's probably developments as we're recording this show. So we'll get into that a little bit later. We kind of covered it extensively yesterday on the Israel Guys program. Obviously, there's new developments today, so we'll get into some commentary on that. Will Iran fall? Will they attack Israel again? Will the U.S. or Israel strike at Iran first? Are they rebuilding their nuclear program? But I want to dive in with a shocking video. You guys do not want to miss this shocking video that happened 10 minutes down the road from where we're sitting right now. And this is something that we have never seen in Israel, Judea and Samaria before. Watch this
Luke,
video.
and I just want to tell Brew quick before we jump this in, this is a good friend of ours who was out on a hike that took this video. So this is like
Verified.
in-house, verified. This is right out our back door here from a friend from the field. Watch this.
שטח C, רובים שלופים, קלאצ'ים.
I want to get one of you guys to kind of translate.
Basically, he's standing there in the land of Israel, right outside of a Jewish village in Samaria, right here, right? And he sees the Palestinian Authority policemen armed to the teeth with Kalashnikovs. Was there an RPG there?
Not in that scene.
Not in that scene, but we're seeing videos of them at RPGs, and he's saying, this is absolutely unbelievable. This is mind-blowing. We actually gave them these weapons in the Oslo debacle, in the embarrassing, humiliating desecration of God's name, which was the Oslo Accords, in which Israel surrendered Judea and Samaria to the Palestinian Authority, which, it sort of smacks of a certain legitimacy, authority. They have some authority. It's Hamas in suits. It's Hamas in suits. And here they are with Kalashnikovs
In Area C, which according to the Oslo Accords is not
It's totally off limits.
That's completely off limits. It's Israeli state lands.
So not only did Israel give them these weapons, but on some level, the Oslo Accords called for some kind of Palestinian police force, right? Which we all know the Oslo Accords is just absolutely bunk and defunct now. Nobody, the PA is not held up to their side at all. But what's shocking about this and why we've never seen this before is we're talking about Israeli sovereign territory, even Area C, right outside. And the friend of ours, who's a farmer that we actually work with every year in Israel, they were hiking, from what I understand. They come up out of the hike onto an Israeli road, Jewish road, Area C, which is specifically designated for Israel in the Oslo Accords, and the road is blocked by PA security forces, aka probably terrorists.
Can I tell you what's even more concerning? This is it's not just a random outside somewhere place. Ari just alluded to the fact it's close by here, but it's close by Ariel. Now, Ariel is a city of some 40,000, I believe now.
Yeah.
Jewish residents. These officers, these loaded, fully decked out plates, vests, helmets, machine guns, 5 minutes from the entrance of this major city here in Samaria. To me, that is, forces us to look back 2 years.
Yeah, it's also something that I think we deserve as the Jewish people. Unfortunately, I'm just being honest. When we look at the thousands of years of yearning and of prayers, please bring us back to our land, and then God brings us back to our land, and in overwhelming, miraculous wars in which we're outweaponed and outmanned, sometimes 10 to 1, 40 to 1, we return to we liberate our ancient homeland, which he promised he would do with kindness and compassion and mercy. He gives it to us, and then we surrender it voluntarily to, it's not to Sweden, that's coming in and saying we want to yodel and have love and friendship. Like, just from the most basic intuition, you don't create a covenant and a contract with people who are never stopped saying for a moment that their purpose is to wipe you off the map and murder all of you. Let alone the land that God said, this is my land. It's not even ours to give away. We're entrusted with it. And we do that. What do we see in the book of Numbers? But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then those whom you let remain shall be thorns in your eyes and pricks in your sides, and they shall harass you in the land in which you dwell. Or in Joshua, know for certain that the Lord your God will no longer drive out these nations from before you, but they shall be a snare and a trap for you, a whip on your sides, a thorn in your eyes, until you perish, right? God has warned us. And what do? Instead of seeking God's favor and being true to our covenant with him, we seek international validation. We seek the love of the world, and we get the absolute reverse. The world hates us and despises us and resents us even more.
Not only that, we gave them the guns that they're now pointing at us. So it's why, instead of just aligning ourselves with the truth, claiming this is our land, living as if our land, we've broken that covenant, armed the enemy, and now the enemy's turning against us. And here we are now, because that was a test. That, I can tell you, if inside Area C, just outside of Ariel, they're now testing their limits. How is Israel going to respond? That armed PA police officers, quote unquote, were now threatening Jewish citizens on a hike? What's happening? So they're looking, and they're going to see, how are we going to respond to that? And they're going to act accordingly.
Yeah, there's an interview on Fox News interviewed Bibi Netanyahu in the U.S. this week, which I want to play some clips from that later on in the show. But at one point, Bibi talks about the disarmament of Hamas, which obviously is not happening, but he names the exact number of weapons that Hamas has. Right. Before we started, Nate pointed out that the reason Netanyahu knows that number, I think he said something like 60,000, AK-47s or Kalashnikovs. He said the reason they know that number is because Israel gave them the weapons or allowed the weapons in, right? Before we move on from this topic, I just want to play one more video clip because it gets even worse. And this is a video clip of the PA training, I believe somewhere in Jericho or near Jericho. But they don't just have weapons, they or guns, they have RPGs. Watch this.
You know what's absolutely outrageous to me is that, okay, so why do they need these weapons, and why did America and the Oslo courts think that, okay, we're going to arm the big bad wolf in order to protect the sheep somehow? The ideology is so far from the reality on the ground. It's obvious after, how many years? 1994, I believe the Oslo courts were signed. All these years, we have data in. The Palestinian Authority is a terrorist organization that their trained members murder Jews.
And then they get paid for murdering Jews.
It's actually on the books. It's that's the process. You kill, you receive benefit.
Right, but you understand that a number of these terrorist attacks have been committed by PA police officers.
These ones that America funded to train.
Yeah, not just Palestinian Authority giving any terrorist the money. Actual police officers that are currently police officers are murdering Jews.
Not just two. Like I'm talking about tons. And the fact that now the corrupted idea that these people somehow need to be trained in order to bring, because obviously they have a civil problem. the radicalization of their communities. Well, the problem is the ones leading the radicalization of their communities is the PA officers themselves.
It's like the mayor. We'll get back to the podcast in just a second, but first, if you guys want to show your support for Israel in 2026, one of the best ways you can do that is by picking up the Israel Leather Patch Established 1948 hats that we carry on the Israel Guys store, and we have them in a bunch of different colors. I'll show you green. We got red, we have blue, gray, a different color gray. I don't even know if all these colors are on the store because we don't keep a lot of them in stock because our store is very, very small. So if you guys want a hat, you need to go get it right now. Beautiful leather patch engraved hats, Richardson 112. These are like our team members' favorite hats. You see them, the hosts wear them on the show a lot. A lot of our staff members have like 10 or 15 of them. That's also why it's hard to keep them in stock because the team, our staff members just buy them up so quickly. If you guys want to stand strongly with Israel and show your support publicly, get a Leather Patch Israel Established hat today at the IsraelGuys.store. We'll put a link in the description below. Back to the podcast. It's like the mayor that you interviewed in Tur Messiah, which is right next to Shiloh. It's that village everybody calls like the Hollywood Boulevard because it's just mansions of a Palestinian village. We interviewed the mayor and you asked him, what's your biggest problem that you deal with on a daily basis? And he said, well, it's like local crime. I deal with these guys. And then he caught himself. He's like, no, actually, sorry, I misspoke. It's settler violence. Just repeating the line. But I think I agree with Jeremy that like this is, if you see armed PA police officers in Israeli sovereign territory, Area C,
it's tested.
That's like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I mean, there should be alarms going off. By the way, the number's 44 that I know of. There were 44 PA police officers who have been declared martyrs for killing Jews in terrorist attacks.
And are now on a lifetime salary from the PA.
Right, and is considered by America and the world as the moderate faction. That's the PA.
The PA, right, yeah. Because they're not Hamas.
Just to kind of highlight for the audience the danger of this, Ari's going to kill this fly if he gets a chance. So
just get an Amazon affiliate
and then we'll make YouTube shorts about it and it'll go viral. But to highlight, because people probably would want to know, they're always hearing about terrorism, hearing about the IDF squashing terrorism in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. Like, how is this different, right? Well, you have areas A, B, and C. Areas A is like Arab cities and towns, right? Area B is a lot of Arab houses and towns, but it's like roads go through it. And you have both, if you drive on the highway down here, you have Israeli cars, Arab cars. Most of when the IDF goes in on missions to squash terrorism, it's in areas A or B, right? They go into Shechem, they go into Ramallah, they go into Jericho, or like these areas, they're taking out terrorists, arresting terrorists. The difference here is that the PA is now like coming out of those areas into Jewish villages, Jewish towns, Jewish roads, Jewish hiking areas. And if this erupts into war with the PA openly attacking Israel in their own sovereign territory, we're talking now we're driving to the grocery store and there's, two armored vehicles like firing RPGs at each other. It's a whole nother level, I guess.
I want you to know that I was alive for this. I remember this before Oslo was passed. There were huge demonstrations throughout Israel. I mean, the country arose with a zeal against what we saw clearly and intuitively and obviously was going to be a suicide pact that would just drench the streets of Israel with blood. We knew it. The nation knew it. Remember, Jeremy, they would let sheep out into the streets saying we're going like sheep to the slaughter. And it doesn't matter. And they were able to, through very nefarious means, get it passed by one vote. Because what is it officially? If you look at the one commercial that Louis Theroux had for his entire documentary, it was him saying, is this area A or C or B? I'm like, I don't even care. That's just what it is it's a European Western projection of their values and their very, very limited, distorted, backwards understanding of the situation projected on the situation here, which just amplified it and made it worse. If you pass by an area A, am I allowed to drive into there? No. It says a sign. If Jews come in here, you will die. It says you will die. You
And
will
it's
be
illegal.
Yeah, it's illegal. You will die. It is like roughly the equivalent of entering Auschwitz for some of them. For other villages that I actually know of, you can drive right in and they'll greet you nicely, right? There was nuance. There was a relationships. And think about just from the state of Israel perspective. Imagine you're an Arab who actually has an affinity and affection for Jews going back to Ishmael and Isaac, and they have that consciousness and awareness. And there's a lot of them in this country that are like that. And then you put a big sign in front of their village. They're a hospitable people that says, if you come in here, you will die. Talk about disempowerment, right? We got to take those signs down. We got to reverse this entire Oslo thing, which was a horrific mistake to begin with. There is no Area A, no Area B, no Area C. Sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. This game is over.
Well said.
That's what needs to happen.
Well said.
Well, I think that October 7th sort of proved that it has nothing to do with areas A, B, or C, or the 67 borders. The communities around Gaza were the most peace-loving communities in Israel. They were in 1948 borders. It had nothing to do with that. If we don't realize this isn't a political war with political language, it is a fundamental religious war, a spiritual battle. And until Israel recognizes that and operates accordingly, we're never going to have a solution to this issue.
I mean, just think about that title, Oslo. Oslo in Norway, these smug, arrogant, cosmopolitan, atheist Europeans coming in and imposing their will on us here. And like, talk about like subjugated, vassalized Jews. We're not that anymore. You know, we need to rise up with a fierce vengeance and say none of this anymore. Get out, like, as opposed to the Abraham Accords. Right? That came from within us. That was saying, no, this is a biblical issue. Let's go to the biblical roots of it. And that was beautiful. Right? But then the Oslo Accords, so that's a perfect, foil. The Oslo Accords and the Abraham Accords, which is the route that we want to take?
I think it's ironic and important what you said, Jeremy, is that, if you were to predict an October 7th style attack, it most definitely would have been predicted in Judea and Samaria, like all these Arab communities, terrorist hotbeds. Like nobody would have imagined that would take place in Israel proper, in the most, like you said, most peace-loving communities. And so I think that's really important for people to understand, is that this is also like terrorist attacks in Israel in the last few years happening outside Judea and Samaria, in Tel Aviv, in Lod, in Haifa, in most like Israeli cities where there is supposedly Israeli sovereignty over the land, right?
Well, the defense minister did just come out saying that Israel's on high alert now because they are planning an October 7th-like event here in Judea and Samaria. So we have to keep our eyes open.
Well, I feel that on the streets. You drive, you sense that. We just showed the video from the hike. That is what is operating. There's a buzz in these Arab communities inside, and that's shown to us when we get close to that nest. It's fuming. It's like there's an empowerment that's happened when the international world talks the way they're talking, when they're canceling, these events all over Europe, and these even Jeremy, you were just mentioning the end of the year, these the
New Year's celebrations.
New Year's celebrations that were intended to happen in these countries are being foiled because people are scared. Well, you know what that does? That just empowers these guys on this side to say, we've got it.
Can you mention that, though? Because I was shocked to hear that it was not like Jewish groups that were, because you would think like Hanukkah celebrations have to be canceled or they're in danger. There's a Hanukkah attack in Sydney, Australia, right? But you're just saying just New Year celebrations in general had to be canceled because of threats from
there were attacks on the Christmas markets in Europe, and then Australia, France, and Germany had to cancel their public New Year's events.
Why?
Their New Year celebrations. They were scared of Islamic jihad.
Is New Year's Christian? Is it Jewish?
It's pretty secular from what I've seen.
I'm pretty sure
it's Christian, but does that surprise you?
Is it Christian? New Year's is a Christian?
Well, I think originally it's AD after death. Who's death?
Nobody looks at New Year's as Christian, do they?
No,
the Muslims
pretty
do.
Secular.
Do they? The Muslims do.
I think they have a totally different calendar. So you're selling a calendar that's not their calendar.
Though, what I'm hearing is that anything except Islam.
No, what people don't realize is that as they were protesting against Israel, they were saying globalize the Intifada. And now they're globalizing the Intifada. That uprising is happening all over the world. So whatever's happening in Judea and Samaria, in the heartland of Israel, that's just a mirror for what's going to happen around the world. And it's happening.
Right. Well, and does it surprise you after what happened in Texas in Texas with the Israel Guys Summit.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, like we look back in Charlie Kirk, we all have a feeling it's going to be viewed in history books as a turning point of some sort.
Yeah.
We're still seeing what that turning point is turning into, ironically, Turning Point USA. But I think that we're going to look back at right now what's happening as a real turning point in the entire situation.
Well, I mean, when you think about the conservative movement, I've been trying to think about that. Like, what is this break? Because he was one of the last ones in the conservative Republican Party that was staunchly pro-Israel unapologetically. And now there's a real rift within the Republican Party, within the conservative movement. And people are calling it the woke right. People are calling it the woke Reich. Like, there's like the Nazis within the conservative movement. And I really want to call it the pagan right. That's really what it boils down to. Is God an active participant in history? Is he alive? Is the Bible a book that was written thousands of years ago? Or is the Bible speaking to us today? Is prophecy unfolding today? Is what's happening in Israel a part of God's plan? And the woke right are saying, no, they don't want to bring God into the real world. They want to keep God as a relic on a shelf somewhere. It's part of an ancient people, an ancient Bible. And the real conservative movement that are God-loving and God-fearing people are saying what's happening in Israel is biblical destiny. And that really is going to be the dividing line.
Yeah. Before we move on from the topic of Judea and Samaria, just some stats that have come out. Defense Minister Israel Katz visited Judea and Samaria this week. He did order the commanders of the IDF here to prepare to respond, quote, prepare to respond to a possible October 7th style attack on communities in Judea and Samaria and along the seam line. At the same time, he noted that there's been a massive decrease in terrorist activities in Judea and Samaria in 2025, 80% decrease, and that's due to the IDF operations that have been going on for at least a year now. But the IDF has been going into every terrorist hotbed in Judea and Samaria and cleaning house.
Do you know when they saw the uptick here? It's when the ceasefire went into effect in Gaza. That's when it empowered these guys to be like, okay, now it's our turn. We're gonna push now that there's whenever the IDF, whenever Israel is strong, whenever they're showing strength, these guys understand there's no that we don't have, this is never going to work for us. Whenever Israel shows weakness, which means deals, ceasefires, any kind of compliance with international agendas that are not in Israel's unique favor, these guys are emboldened. And then we see the spike in terrorism or whatever kind of, especially in these villages around us right now.
The terrorist attacks against Jews in Judea at least has gone down precipitously because of exactly these security attacks. But there was an incident that happened. We were going to talk about it on the show. We didn't. We were going to. We were thinking about it because it's sort of the dirty underbelly of some of the stuff that happens in Israel that you don't necessarily want to air your dirty laundry. But I think that if we're going to really have truth, we need to be willing to talk about that. So I think it was maybe a month ago, right across the valley from us, there was a Jewish village called Turmiskavi, right? And these were Jews that went very much with tremendous self-sacrifice, built homes on these mountaintops in Judea, very much protecting them from jihadist takeover. And then the Israeli government came in and destroyed many of these homes, the ones that were in the process of being built. And the painful part is that it wasn't only the higher ups in the government that doesn't represent the nation. A lot of it was the local municipalities in Judea that were saying, we have a plan here to build 1,000 units. And now these sort of renegade Jews are building their houses here. We can't do that. Right? So they came in and they destroyed it. And it doesn't matter what their justification is, in my mind at least, for them to go and forcefully destroy Jewish homes in Judea the very next day. There was a horrible terrorist attack, and there hadn't been one for such a long time, because when our enemies see, when they smell blood, when they see us fighting each other, when they see that
disunity or whatever it is, it shows weakness.
Right. It shows weakness. That's what this is about.
2025 snapshot of terrorism in Judea and Samaria. 20 Israelis were killed in terror attacks in 2025. That's from 60 attacks, including stabbings, rammings, and shootings, compared to about 250 attacks the year before in 2024. As far as people killed, in 2024, there was 34 people killed, and in 2023, 41 people killed. So terrorism is definitely down in Judea and Samaria, and a lot of that thanks to the IDF operations. Question is it okay that 20 people were killed?
No. Is it okay that the daughter of Israel has a toenail chipped by a jihadist terrorist. That should be enough in my mind to unwreak the wrath of the nation of Israel. That's and I'm not even being facetious or exaggerating. That should be the posture. That is all that they understand, and that is actually what the truth of the situation is. We need to have a self-respect and a righteous indignation that is worthy of our people.
You know, the terrorist attack that you just mentioned in Gush Etzion was actually done by PA policemen. And now we're seeing PA policemen with machine guns standing in Area C on the roads, blocking Jewish people that are just kind of going on a hike through the mountains. And to me, it's obvious that 2026 is going to see war. It may be a war with Iran. It may be a war within Judea and Samaria. And Israel is actually taking steps along the way. I just heard that Israel's going to invest $110 billion to build its own independent arm industry here in Israel.
Wow.
Because America all of a sudden had they're like arms embargoes that were threatening us. And Israel's saying, oh, we have to prepare for post-Trump. Who knows what the next president will be from the right and from the left. And so Israel is taking steps to become more and more independent.
That's crazy.
You know, I'm also seeing some big news on the Jordanian border because that's also a massive threat there, and a lot of the weapons that we're talking about.
Well, Israel's now building a brand new massive infrastructure along the Jordanian border,
which hopefully is going to stop some of these weapons. We talked about Israel giving the weapons. Well, that's only a small portion of them. A lot of these weapons were smuggled in from all these countries. Every week you see a new news article about weapons trying to be smuggled in from Egypt or Jordan or Lebanon. Like, that's a massive smuggling routes of weapons into these Arab communities.
Well, Ari and I served on the borders a lot of times, exactly protecting those kind of smugglings. And let me tell you, we never had to deal with drones. Drones are very hard it's an entirely new way of smuggling. And so I think that the guns that are entering into Judea and Samaria are exactly from the border with Jordan, and Israel can build infrastructure. But I think until today, they still don't have a very effective way of stopping drones.
Yeah, I've seen videos of like attack helicopters just like shooting a drone out of the sky. Like, it's crazy that it takes like a military helicopter to take down a drone that's like this big, and it has like 2 rifles hanging from the bottom of it.
One last note that I had: we talked about RPGs in these communities. That's illegal. When everybody wants to talk about illegal according to international
we're talking about a police force.
Yeah.
Like, do police forces carry RPGs around?
Well, it depends on what police. They not even allowed to carry pocket knives in Europe, I think.
Like a counterterrorism unit or something.
A lot of these police officers that you see around the world, it's totally stripped of anything.
Totally.
They're only allowed a little bat.
Right. But this whole thing is a little bit of a caricature. I say, we named our son for a bunch of reasons I won't go into. His name is Mordechai Shimshon, Samson. And one of the things I say is because Samson was the last Jew that actually knew how to handle Gaza. Right? What did he do? He had the jawbone of a donkey, and he slayed thousands. We think we need this U.S. foreign aid and all these deals and all these weapons. We only need Western weapons if we want to continue to fight in order to lose. If we want to actually win, we have what we need. And I can't help but to think of the verse in Deuteronomy, right? Hem yichasuni below el. They provoked me with a non-God. They angered me with their vanities. So I will provoke them with a non-nation. With a foolish people, I will anger them. Right? What is a better example of a non-nation than Palestine? Where is this ancient country of Palestine? Who was the prime minister? What was their currency? Show me their flag. They never existed, but they're this thorn in our sides because we continue to put our hope and our trust in Trump, in America, in international validation, rather than just putting our faith in the God of Israel and moving forward. The whole world is waiting for it. They're waiting to see the nation of Israel do that. And the hatred for us is going to grow and grow more and more until we do.
Talking about the non-nation, this is something that is very interesting to bring up right now because this was a global scene that just happened. Is the world, or Israel, recognized Somaliland? Well, there was a very interesting battle that went down in the UN when this happened. The U.S. took the position and said, "Wait, the whole world, you called a special meeting in the UN to talk about this when." The whole world just recently recognized this nation that's not a nation, Palestine, and the UN was completely silent and even pushing this agenda forward. Israel, a sovereign nation, recognizes another sovereignty, should be completely normal. And this was the U.S. Speech that they gave in the UN.
By the way,
look at this.
An entity that's been operating as an independent entity since 1991.
Yeah.
Something that the Arabs here have never been able to do. They've never had an independent entity. They've never had a government. They've never even been able to provide their own water and electricity.
So I just thought it was a fascinating and good of America to say, Israel's a sovereign country. America, we're not recognizing Somaliland right now, but Israel has every right to. They're a sovereign country. I was like, good for America, at least the ambassador in the UN, to actually recognize that Israel can make their own decisions.
I just
thought
wish
that was
they would have
amazing.
named it something Somaliland. It sounds like a theme park you would find in Somalia.
To give you the honest truth, I had no earthly idea where they were talking about when I heard about it. I mean,
now
come
you
on,
see
tell me
that-
the truth.
Now
Did
you
you
see
know
that
what
it's
Somaliland
actually
is?
no.
Okay.
I didn't. No, but there's two important things to see: the strategic importance of where it is on the Red
That's
Sea.
right. That's right.
That they're able now. Israel has actually a hand in protecting that entire the critical passage for cargo ships to go through there. That's number one. Number two, did you see that Chabad is setting up a Chabad center in Somaliland? Could we see that video? Show the video.
Yeah, let me find it.
This is fantastic.
Just put the sign up. Little Stars Somali Daycare. The idea is simple. Loving care steeped in Somali culture, and every penny goes to building our new Chabad center. Thank you.
No,
I'm pretty sure that that's a spoof.
do you think? I'm pretty sure. Do you know Chabad?
I can't tell if that's laughing at the fraud that was found in Minnesota with the Somalian daycare centers, or if that was about setting up a Chabad house in Somaliland. I'm not sure what that
Okay,
video was.
so first
Either
of
way,
all,
it's funny.
First of all, yeah, it's funny either way. Okay, but what I can say is whether that's a spoof or not, what's not a spoof is that Chabad is going to be setting up centers there.
Oh, for
Okay?
sure.
Like,
Well, I just like
this is
the
after what happened
massive
to
Israeli flags that are in the streets of Somalia or
Yeah.
Somaliland.
yeah, I'm
It's hard
shocked
to-
that
it's a hard
Chabad
name to
doesn't
say.
already have a center there. You know, after what happened in Bondi Beach, you'd think that,
Oh, my,
Chabad,
yeah.
they're going to be licking their wounds. No. The Chabad, for those that don't know, Chabad are like the most elite unit within the nation of Israel. Listen, I have my issues with Chabad, okay? But I love them because they are saying we are here to bring light to the world, not just to the Jews in Somaliland, but to the entire world. They open up their doors to anyone that wants to come in and have a Shabbat meal, not to convert them and not to with any agenda, just to share the light of the Bible, of the Torah, and of God, the God of Israel with the world. It's really such
And
a
ultimately
beautiful
to
thing.
be a light to the Jewish people, to make sure the Jewish identity is protected, right? And then
Very much, yes, yes.
which is amazing, absolutely fantastic.
Well, I don't want to leave the Somaliland idea yet because you just have the strategic importance. It's right where the ships are. There's the Houthis. I understand all that strategic, but I think something else is happening.
Yeah.
I think that Israel has yet to find a place where we could actually put the Gazans. And I'm wondering if that's a part of the plan.
That's an interesting idea.
All of this is unfolding right now, and all these people, like, why is Netanyahu recognizing Somaliland with all the things that are going on now? It's like an unknown country in an unknown place because they have to figure out a way of removing Amalek from the land.
I hate that idea as much as I love you.
Wait, but did you
Yes.
hear this? This is really fascinating because Trump, there was this little thing that came out and he said, it came up while the Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, was in the U.S. with him, and they talked about something about relocating the Gazans, and Trump was like, wait, let's not talk about this. This is only going to, it's going to confuse the matters. Because they were going to speak about trying to, voluntary, leaving the country, whatever they call it. Voluntary, what do they call it?
Immigration.
Voluntary
But
immigration.
is that really what we want to do to our new allies? We want to send them our Gazans?
No, but the
We have
fact of the matter is,
a beautiful relationship forming, and we're going to send them.
send them your worst enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't sound so nice, but it does seem like what you're onto, Jeremy, is something they're talking about internally. That's not. They're probably not going to be a big news flash. Oh, the new Somaliland accepts.
I think somebody
there's
on
going to be
this
something under
I
them.
think somebody around this table needs to volunteer to go on a vacation in Somaliland to
And do
find
some
out
underground.
if this is just a political stunt move for Somaliland or if they said they're going to join the Abraham Accords, I think.
Yeah,
right?
they joined the Abraham Accord, but something's
flying
going
Israeli
on
flag,
that is
right.
beyond whatever is the strategic importance of the routes to the boats and the Houthis. Something's going on, and that's my instinct, is that once you remove the Gazans from the land of Israel, I think a lot of the jihadists within them will be diffused. And so it could be that that's a
Well,
strategic.
based on what do you think that the jihadism within them will be diffused? Based on the World Trade Center bombers? Based on every single jihadist attack throughout the world and throughout Europe and that just happened in Bondi Beach? I don't see the jihadism being diffused.
Actually,
We'll get back to the podcast in just a second, but first, this is the last chance to apply for the upcoming all-men's trip to Israel, February 16th through March 1st. It's a 2-week trip just for men, fathers and sons, young and old. This one's for you. We're pruning the vines in the vineyards of Judea and Samaria. It's a volunteer experience where you get to serve the land and people of Israel, and you get to experience Judea and Samaria, and Jerusalem in return. Incredible trip. We have an amazing group of men. I believe are actually almost to capacity, but there's a couple of slots left. And the last day to apply is January 5th. So if you're interested in coming, February 16th through March 1st, all men's pruning trip. Most of the men that come say this is a trip that absolutely changes their lives. You get away from the busyness of work and life, and you come to the land of Israel, and you get to serve and experience the land with other like-minded men. Click the link in the description below. Men's pruning trip. Last day to apply is January 5th. Don't wait. There's just a couple of slots left. Back to the podcast.
Actually, you're only proving my point. Meaning, I'm not saying that the terrorism will end, but the fervor and the commitment and the dedication to killing actually is aroused when they are in the land of Israel. Once they're removed,
how's what I said proving your point? What I said is that they're actually doing these terrorist attacks all over the world still constantly.
So they've done one terrorist attack in 9/11, but they have an entire people that's dedicated to annihilating the Jewish people in the land is different. And listen.
Okay, we can agree to disagree because I don't want to rip apart the argument too much. But what I will say is that it feels like there's a fundamental premise in that whole.
Are you saying that we should not relocate the Gazans?
That's what I'm saying.
We should not relocate them.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying we need to uproot the spiritual concept of the jihad. We need to fight the darkness at its core. Otherwise, okay, we relocate the Gazans. And what about the millions of Arabs in Israel that are actually jihadists? And what about the Palestinian Authority? And what about Syria? And we're surrounded by the jihad. What about if we go to the core of it and we uproot the darkness of the jihad and then we bring them to our side? That's what I'm saying. Otherwise, it's just too symptomatic.
I think there's an immediate problem and there's a long-term problem, right? And I think you're right that we have to uproot the evil. But how quickly is that going to happen? And what do we do in the interim?
The way to uproot it though is so obvious. You have to go in there, security, settlement, sovereignty, and now the land is an integrated part of the land of Israel. That would quiet all of the jihad around us once Israel were to respond in a way that we are reclaiming the land of Israel to us.
That would be a step in the right direction. That would be an excellent start. But here I go being me and saying, what is really uprooting it at its core in the roots? It's building the Beit HaMikdash, building the temple, right? As long as that over the Even HaShtiyah, that foundation stone from which the entire world was created, God's light is being channeled through there and it's going through the Dome of the Rock and it's going through Islam and the jihad, then that is a beating, pulsating spiritual power to all of the world. When we build the Beit HaMikdash there, then God's light will be channeling through it in the way that will bring healing and light and love, and we won't have to start relocating. At a certain point, Israel has to look around and be like, we can relocate them and them and them and them and them. Oh, the whole world, we're surrounded by 23 Arab states, 57 Muslim states. We're going to relocate everybody?
Hey, how about
maybe
this?
There's something deeper here.
What if supposedly, I just looked it up, and there's not really a Jewish community in Somaliland. Supposedly, there's not synagogues or anything like this. I don't know much about it, but I don't believe there's.
Yeah, but there will be soon. There will be a Chabad center soon.
But not if a bunch of Gazans move there. That certainly won't be happening if a bunch of Gazans move in. But
what's this?
I'm just still wounded from when I was in the army and in Lebanon, and then Israel retreated from Lebanon and betrayed the South Lebanese army, leaving them to the predations of the Hezbollah. And I was like, is this the message we're sending to our allies, that we are going to stab you in the back, that we're going to be pragmatic? We should be, when we have an ally, as long as they are walking the line of truth and morality and goodness, we should be willing to fall on the sword for them. We should be the most loyal, and to talk about is shaking the hands of these sweet, wonderful people in Somaliland and then sending them our Gazans because it serves us well.
It may serve them as well.
Oh, please, come on.
It's not like we're going to send them without their permission. I'm just saying there is perhaps a strategic alliance. Somaliland is huge. Gaza is very small. It's much bigger than Gaza.
Oh, of course.
It's much bigger than Israel. It's a huge tract of land. And so it's not like Israel's going to force it upon them. But right now, Israel has not found a way to actually remove the Gazans from the land of Israel. No one's found a way. So
these tranches of mortgages that brought down America, like, yes, let's send them to their own. 70% of the horrific, torturous murdering and burning of babies and murdering of women happened from civilians in Gaza. we're going to send them these civilians in Gaza. I'm sorry. If you're an ally of the nation of Israel, our first gesture isn't going to be sending you, sadistic, torturing jihadists. That's just not an act of goodwill.
I guess my question is whether or not they are an ally of the nation of Israel, because so far Israel has extended a gesture to them of recognition, and they've said they're joining the Abraham Accords, but I think it remains to be seen.
Are they flying Israeli flags in Somaliland?
Because Israel recognized them. Are they still flying them today? That's what I want. That's why I'm saying.
Okay, but if we need to fly,
we need to go take a vacation there and actually do some interviews on the streets.
By the way, that's not a bad idea. I would rather die 1,000
It's not
deaths.
that far.
I'm just never leaving Israel again.
Yeah, we know.
I'm never leaving Israel again. Jeremy, what about you? You going to Somaliland?
I'm thinking about it. Why not?
I mean, you went to UAE, right?
Yeah,
Right.
sure
They
did. As soon as they joined the
recognized
Abraham
Israel.
Accord, I was fascinated to go there.
Talking like Tucker Carlson. He's like, they have things under control. It's a really nice place. Maybe we should be.
Well, they live a lot more by the Torah than we do. That's the truth. As far as they have the Dubai citizens, and 80% of the people living in Dubai are non-Dubai citizens. Yeah. They're there on work permits. They're there as a ger toshav. If we implemented a ger toshav in the land of Israel, a lot more clarity would be available for everyone.
I bet you I'm saying 2026 that there's billions of dollars on the table in gifts to Somaliland to take this off of Israel, and it's the U.S. You shouldn't feel bad, Ari. It's the U.S. running this show behind the scenes, not Israel. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying what Josh is saying is that like Netanyahu and Trump, they're not about to build the Beit HaMikdash. They're not about to build the temple on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem now. So even if that is going to the heart and the sword and the core of it all, they're going to be very practical. They're like, all right, here's Gaza. We got to figure this thing out. And they're saying, all right, that might be a real solution. I'm not saying that's even what's happening. I'm just saying like something else is going on that's beyond our own vision.
I think there's a lot that remains to be seen. This is like a developing story. And when they join the Abraham Accords, I think that's going to be massive.
There's also biblical precedents for people leaving Israel. I mean, Ari, people can go on their own free will. People fled King David and lots of kings of Israel. They left.
I think I just read a report saying that the residents of Gaza now are about 20% less than they were before the war. So there are people that are immigrating in their own free will. That's happening.
I want to talk about the demographic story that's in all the news, because there's two different stories actually. And I think this is really interesting. And then after that, we should touch on Iran, because obviously...
Just 1 second. I just had this vision of Ari standing at the gates of Gaza, an Abrahamic tent. And Ari's real heart behind this is that the Gazans could actually be helped. And so if you could actually take this dark evil that's going in, Ari's like, let's fix that. Israel has the role in the world.
You've invited Candace Owens and Fuentes to your Shabbat table repeatedly, so we would not be
I just envision Ari in this Abrahamic kind of role of like, no, we can't send these people to somebody else. What are they going to do with them? How are they going to train these people to love God?
The director of the Abraham Accords.
The director of the Abraham Accords.
I think that would be like
train the nations in good ways. That's like Ari's role.
Director of the Abraham Accords.
That's what I'm saying. Is you need to be
I could be that guy.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
I just had that, and I thought that was nice.
Okay, so there's two different stories in the news about the demographics of Israel in 2025 in the last few years. And I like this quote by Mark Twain. I'd never heard this. He says, there are three kinds of lies, damned lies, and statistics. So this is a really good example of that. Most of the news, including like the conservative outlets in Israel, are reporting that there's a decline in Israel's growth rate, including birth rate, and more Israelis than ever leaving the country.
So this is a bad statistic.
They're saying it's decreasing, right? And they're saying this is really bad. For the first time in a long time, Israel's shrinking, right? So they're saying Israel's growth rate this last year was 1.1%. And according to the data, let's see, it says that I think how many people left Israel in the last year? There's basically so many people, more people than ever left the country in the last year. So this sounds very negative, right? Mm-hmm. But there's another website called thejewishedition.com. I think, Ari, you found this article. It tells a very different story, because those are the stats, right? But when you dive into the data, it tells a very different story. The Taub Center is the one that came out with the demographic story. But what's actually happening is that if you dive into the different demographics in Israel, the only ones that are shrinking or decreasing is the non-Jewish demographics, the Arabs, the Muslims, the Christian demographic. Others, the only one that's actually growing is the Jewish demographic. So the Jewish population is growing in Israel. The non-Jewish population is declining.
But I think in 2026, we're going to see a precipitous rise in Jewish demographic in Israel. There's going to be, I mean, the government is preparing for it. They're preparing rescue flights.
Can I
So-
personal story? Personal story.
Sorry.
No, yeah, it's okay.
That's a personal story. There was a guy that I knew that left Israel a couple years ago. Think war, it was hard to go through this. He went to America, went to Texas of all places, thought it would be better, easier life. He went, he opened a business and then ended up moving that business to Florida because Texas was hard for a Jew. Unfortunately, that's reality. Moved to Florida where he could have more success.
Where was he in Texas?
I don't even know where. I think it was Houston or something like that. And then he moved his business to Florida. Easier to do. He came back to Israel just within the last little bit here, said America's not a place for Jews. I thought that was an amazing story in that a lot of these numbers that people that have left Israel in a momentary kind of like hurt of like, this is hard. I've been in the reserve duty for a year straight and 2 years straight. And my family's, I'm going through a lot of stuff. And you know what? If I just didn't live here, life would be easy. And then they go to America and find out, no, that war is there too. And it's not easy. Not easy to have a business in America right now either. And then, this is a really awesome stat, is all of his buddies back in Israel are being much more successful. The GDP in Israel is like rocketing while America's like
but they're coming back to the Holy Land much holier. That's the truth. I see this. Jeremy and I were in the army.
If you witnessed the same thing
for many, many years, and there's all these guys, when I'm done with the army, I'm going to go to America, make a bunch of money, and they're not religious guys. They go to America, and now that they're disconnected from Israel, they need some sort of connection to their fellow Israelites, so they go to Chabad, and then they actually become religious, and then they come back to Israel when they find out that it's empty golden handcuffs there, and if they're able to make it back, they do, and now they're religious, and there was some reason they had to go on that journey, and this is all part of the journey that's playing out. But there's also an absurdity. There's an absurdity to the idea of Aliyah, and I thought we'd just throw in this little comedy bit here that explains. I hope that the non-Jew would be able to understand it, because I wonder how much of it is just personal, like you laugh because you're in Israel. But
I laughed very hard and thought it was hilarious, but I am quite in a Jewish context here.
So play it here.
You can't convince people to do Aliyah to Israel. You know why? Who did Aliyah, please? Who did Aliyah? You think I can convince you to come to a place that, listen, 2 weeks ago we had Byron, the storm. It was raining. People text me on my Instagram, Uncle Shachar, should we come to the show because there's a storm out there? We're afraid of the storm. But when we had 300 missiles from Iran, ballistics, people wrote me on Instagram, Dir Balak, to cancel the show. You can't explain this country to people that are doing Aliyah. You know that right now they want to give 10,000 shekels fine to somebody that's going to text while driving. Did you hear about that? 10,000 shekels if you drive and you touch your phone, because it's dangerous to drive and touch your phone. But to drive with Chanukiah on the roof of your car? Light the Chanukiah with fire. You can drive, nobody cares. Nobody cares, even the police officer. Chag Sameach. And you see Chabadnik. Every turn, the Chanukiah.
So I think just to finish the demographics. Yeah, hopefully people outside Israel, hopefully they kind of got that humor there. And we'll link it down below. You can watch the video. It helps to actually see it as well if you're listening on podcast platforms. Finish the demographic report is that, the news is saying Israel's shrinking, their birth rate's down, Aliyah is down, more people than ever are leaving Israel. End of the story, Jewish birth rates are holding steady or growing. Jewish demographic is growing. Aliyah may have been down a little bit, but holding steady. And there's another really interesting stat, is that more people than ever left Israel last year. There's a simple and excellent explanation. I'm reading this from the Jewish Edition article. Then it says Ukrainian refugees who fled the Ukrainian war in 2022, who otherwise would not have been able to immigrate to the Jewish state. Israel took in a bunch of Ukrainian refugees. They got Israeli passports. They got packages of benefits. Guess what? a whole bunch of them took off for the U.S. and Canada. So this could also be playing into this factor is it's actually non-Israelis and non-Jews leaving the country as well. So, and also I just want to mention too, I think you referenced it, Israel's GDP up 25%. If anybody invested in the Israeli stock market in the last couple of years, is there any other nation in the world that goes through 2 years of war and massive terrorist attacks, enemies on like 5 fronts,
7,
and their economy is like booming and growing and the stock market is through the roof? Like, is there any other example of that anywhere?
I just read that the Gaza border communities now have more residents than they had before October 7th.
Did you really?
Yeah.
What?
So you just see
read
like
that too.
Israel just keeps on coming back stronger. The GDP, the birth rate, the stock market, even the Gaza envelope is stronger now than it was before October 7th.
And that's why Hamas, there's a lot of Jewish organizations that are called kiruv, which means to bring close, that are seeking to reconnect Jews that are secular, that are disconnected to their Jewish heritage. There's no organization that's been nearly as successful in doing that as Hamas. Hamas has been more successful than all of them put together. Here's a video of Maxim, who was a totally disconnected, secular Russian Oleg, because a lot of these Russian Jews have had generations of the Soviet brainwashing of godlessness. They come to Israel and they have that with them. And while he was captive in Gaza, he had such a spiritual revolution that here he is actually being circumcised and naming himself. Go ahead.
Eloheinu v'Elohei Aviseinu kayem esaish hazeh liyovi v'uleimei v'yikare shmei beYisrael Zalman Zelig ben Avram.
Ari, for those who don't speak Hebrew and people listening, can you just explain what was happening there?
Yes, so just clarification. I did not send Aaron a video of this young man, 30 years old, actually being circumcised. This is the traditional ritual post-circumcision where he's now given a Jewish name, because as you know, the law of return was such where Israel determined who could come to Israel as a Jew based on who Hitler defined as a Jew, so which he said was also patrilineal descent and not just matrilineal descent as Jewish law would dictate. So that means that there's a lot of non-Jewish Russians that came in that have a Jewish father. So that was clearly Maxim. So he wasn't even circumcised. He became circumcised and he named himself Zalman Zelig.
Zalman Zelig.
I mean, the
law of return based on Hitler is if you have one Jewish grandparent. If you had 1/4 Jewish blood in you.
On either side.
Right.
On either side. But here we see like the sparks of light, that spark of light deep in the heart of Maxim was kindled, and that little flame was turned into a flame torch by Hamas, right? So clearly God is orchestrating something here, something of historic and prophetic significance.
Well, I think what people need to pay attention, if that's true, the Jewish people really are God's shofar. Like what's happening to the Jews in Bondi Beach, what's happening to the Jews inside the land of Israel is a shofar blast for people around the world, because when evil arises in the world, it attacks the Jew first. And it's just a matter of time until it reaches Bondi Beach. It's just a matter of time until it reaches Pearl Harbor.
New York City,
but right now, exactly. New York City, their mayor was just sworn in, swearing on the Quran. And so if they don't think that they're making their own bed, it's like unbelievable.
Chief of staff or something like that is the lawyer who defended Al-Qaeda after 9/11, I believe.
Can I just make a request?
Scary. Yeah.
Luke, would you mind bringing us to the Iran subject? Because I was actually very just about burning
we're running out of time on them, but we did promise everybody we're going to talk about this. And like I said, there might be stuff out by the time you're watching this show it's developed even more. I mean, I saw before we started the protests, there's been an Iranian young man killed in the protests so far. As we're recording, Justin sent a video of a Molotov cocktail catching a Revolutionary Guard policeman on fire. Maybe it'll I don't know. Oh, wow. Yeah, that might get us demonetized if we show that, but we'll leave that up to the editors. But yeah, I mean, Ari, I think you had some commentary on this. Like Iran running out of water, their currency is now like 1.4 million to $1, something like that. Protests rocking the streets started in the merchant quarter, from what I hear.
Burning down some government
buildings. You were saying
too.
something about this from the last time.
That's right.
Iran erupted in protests.
Yeah, the merchants are actually a part of it, which is the exact same unfolding that happened in the last big coup that happened where this current.
But while all this is
humanity
going
took
on,
over, yeah.
Iran is still reportedly trying to rebuild their ballistic missile program, still trying to rebuild their nuclear program, still threatening U.S. and Israel with an attack.
Yeah.
What will it take for the people of Iran to overthrow their?
Okay, so I'm not a prophet here. I'm just a chicken farmer in Judea, and what I'm going to share is just one perspective, one dimension of what I see happening here. Because keep in mind, when you try to look at things with a humble heart, say, God, please help us understand what you are orchestrating here. How is this bringing about your will? How is this bringing about redemption? And he blesses you maybe with an insight. Perhaps yes, perhaps no. But the way I see this is there's a perfect storm brewing in Iran right now, from the water to the economics to the political, on every single front. And when you're an authoritarian, jihadist, apocalyptic regime like that it's not like they're still pursuing. They're doubling, tripling down on pursuing this, because their only way out of maintaining their authority there and not being overthrown is to launch an all-out war, particularly against Israel. And so what is that going to cause? It's going to cause Israel to need to do a preemptive attack. Keep in mind that Russia has, in the past 48 hours, they just sent their 4th cargo plane. What is on these cargo planes from Russia that's a nuclear power that's going to Iran?
I'm sure it's just food and water bottles.
I'm sure that it is, right? But so what's happening is, so now Russia's getting involved, and I continue to insist that the greatest mistake we've made probably in the past 80 years was when Trump said, turn around and don't finish off the Ayatollah, because now Russia and China, they're ready. They saw what's going to happen. We don't have that element of surprise that we had. And so I believe is going to happen is Israel's going to need to launch some sort of preemptive attack. They're going to be ready. It's going to cause serious global, not just regional, but global destabilization. Yeah. There's going to be supermarket shelves that are empty throughout the world, particularly in America. And when you already see the level of out of the closet, blatant Jew hatred that is being fomented on both sides now, when things are okay in America.
That's right.
When Israel launches a preemptive attack against Iran that causes this whole thing, there's going to be tremendous Jew hatred and persecution and attacks, and all of this is leading to the ingathering of the exiles that have been prophesied throughout. I mean, we could go on and on. Just in book of Deuteronomy, Hashem your God will return your captivity and have compassion on you, and he will gather you from all the nations. If your dispersal will be at the end of the heavens, from there Hashem your God will gather you in. Hashem your God will bring you back to the land which your forefathers possessed, and you shall possess it. Again and again and again throughout the entire, this is just chapter 30 in Deuteronomy.
Right.
You know, and this is throughout is it just going to stop in America? No, it's going to continue. And so I see all of this happening in order to ingather the exiles. And why does that need to happen? It needs to happen because when the nation of Israel is back in the land of Israel, for reasons we can't necessarily fully grasp and understand, there's a certain shift to the fabric of the world, the spiritual reality of the world. And this is a necessary building block upon which the redemption will unfold and the temple. I know this sounds very apocalyptic, but it's also very intuitively true. And this is not violence. This is to bring light and peace and love to all of humanity. That's what this really needs to about, not in my opinion, relocating Gazans to Somaliland.
All I was saying is that to relocate them is to reclaim the land of Israel. The ingathering of the exiles is the next process.
That's right.
Meaning God promised the land of Israel to the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So as long as the Jews are scattered around the world and not inheriting that promise, there's something that's fundamentally flawed. It's a desecration of God's name. It's emptying from the world, and us being ingathered to the land and reclaiming the land is the living testimony.
So Jeremy, we have Syria right next door. Why are we relocating them to Somaliland? Our allies send them to Syria.
I'm not saying that we're doing that or that we should do that. I was saying maybe that's what Trump and Netanyahu's meeting was all about.
People in the comments say that I bully you too much. You should know Jeremy is my commander in the army. He's my best friend of 25 years, and I would literally take a bullet for him, even if it was from his own gun. Sometimes
you know what? Something I saw that was actually fascinating within the Iranian discussion here as we wrap up is that the protests that are going on in the streets, they're actually literally yelling 2026 is going to be a year of blood in the streets. That's what the protests are yelling. You got to remember, these are not Western-minded folks. These are people that know what it takes to flip a regime, and they're ready to pay for it. That's why I think we're actually onto something here in Iran that is going to be a little more, like Ari just said, we're talking about something a little more intense than just another little skirmish. This has Russian, Chinese, like this is a much bigger thing. These guys are initiating something here that the world is going to actually say that Israel's initiating. And it's going to come back on Israel, no matter what the will of the people of Iran are. Anything that goes against this global initiatives is going to come back on Israel. And I 100% agree with what Ari's just saying here, and what those are yelling in the streets in Iran right now.
Yeah.
2026, we're going to see some pretty serious things. Please God, not in Israel, but globally.
I mean, I'm tormented by this. This is probably the primary element of torment in my life, is that I'm seeing this, a horse-drawn carriage with my family that I love heading towards the edge of a cliff, and I'm screaming, no, stop, stop. And they're just eating and drinking as they're headed towards the edge of a cliff. That's what I see happening to diaspora Jewry. And it is so painful to be able to see it. The prophet Jeremiah, if anyone's a prophet Jeremiah, it's Jeremiah here. But, the book of Lamentations of Echa was written before the whole tragedy happened. Imagine walking around as Jeremiah with this burning heaviness in your heart, knowing what is to come and not being able to do anything about it. And so I think we need to really blow the shofar, call the nation of Israel back home. This is what I'm saying to them. I'm like, you don't need to take my word for it. All I'm saying to do, sell your house now, put it on the market now, buy a place in Israel with that money, and then rent. You can rent in Boston or New York or Miami or LA. You could rent there. But when you're not so heavily tethered there with everything you have, perhaps you will be able to have more sober, dispassionate, clear thinking when the time comes, because who knows how long you're going to really have to pick up and move before the gates shut.
Especially if you're in New York.
Scary, scary, scary. But, we like to end the show on positive, good things. And Jeremy, I don't know if you got a Torah portion nugget for us today, but while you're thinking about that, you might hear the rain on the roof. January 1st, 2026, and you guys can correct me if you have a different opinion, but this is the most rain Israel has gotten by this point early on in the winter in a very long time.
Thank God.
And it's raining as we record right now. I think Israel's had a record amount of rain this year, which is always a huge blessing, because you probably know Israel does not get rain during the summer and a large part of the spring and fall. So,
one more quick thing to add as the nations. We've talked about a lot of hard things before Jeremy gets in with the final.
Only if it's something
very positive, and that is after the Bondi Beach thing happened, there was a non-Jewish family that looked over into the Jewish family's yard, and because of the persecutions, they had like a menorah, Hanukkah, not just for Hanukkah. They left it in their yard all year round.
One of those electric ones.
It was electric, and the lights were shining.
You can play the clip.
The Christian family. I never even saw this clip. It's an actual story.
Yeah, I played it on the Land of Israel Fellowship.
Such an amazing story where this family looks across the yard and sees that the Jewish family had taken that menorah out. Fear for their lives. Their children were scared to death, being like, "Mom and Dad, you can't have this anymore." This Christian family went over to. They were so hurt by the fact that
the Christian daughter, the little girl, wept
and went to the family and said, "Please put your menorah back in your yard." I think for all of those around the world, as we've talked about a lot of heavy concepts, the non-Jewish world, be that girl that went to the neighbors and said, "Please keep your Jewish light burning. Please don't put it out. Be Jewish. Be strong Jews. Encourage the land of Israel. Encourage the Jewish people." And I think that's the role of the nations for this moment right now. And I want to encourage everybody in these hard times, follow that example.
Yeah. Well, so I want to say, what is going to bring the nations and the people of Israel together? And so we're about to end the book of Genesis and about to start the book of Exodus. Now, the book of Exodus, we receive the Torah. In the book of Genesis, there is no law. There is no real formal 10 commandments that are given. And why does the Torah begin then with the stories of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph, and the brothers, and not start with the law? If the book of law, then let's start with the law. And the reason is that the foundation had to be built on the spirit of the Torah. If there was a law that was imposed first, then the law would override the spirit. The foundation of the Torah then is what the spirit was calling the Torah to be. And so what we're calling and what we're hopefully reflecting to the world here is that we're connecting to the same spirit. We are connecting to the spirit of the Bible. And if we can somehow call the righteous among the nations to connect to the spirit of what the book of Genesis calls us to be, it's to be really a brotherhood of man under the fatherhood of God. And so let 2026 be that year for us.
Amen. All right, guys. Well, as we go into 2026, don't worry, the show's not going away. It's going to get stronger and bigger and better. And we can do that if all of you guys tell your friends and your family, and you send the Israel Guys channel around, post it on your social media. But I'm going to give you 2 action points to get closer to God and the Bible, and to join together with the Jewish people like Jeremy was just talking about. Action point number 1, join the Land of Israel Fellowship at thelandofisrael.com. We'll put the link in the description below. That's Jeremy and Ari's member program, where you can connect with them every single week in a much deeper way and learn Bible, learn Torah, get closer to the God of Abraham. So that's action point number 1. Visit that link below, join the Land of Israel Fellowship. Secondly, join the Israel Guys member program. That's how you can keep this podcast running for 2026. Thank you to everyone that donated to the year-end fundraiser.
Yeah.
Also, I was supposed to be patched in, but my kids were melting down, and I'm not supposed to say I was babysitting my kids because my wife is like, they're your kids, you're not babysitting them. But I wanted to patch in and say, if you haven't given yet, please do. There is not a greater cause than these holy, I'm not just talking about Josh and Luke, I'm talking about Hayovel, about these righteous of the nations that literally are coming to the front lines to defend and support and love and encourage the Jewish people. And I would encourage you, if you still can, click on the link and give.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ari. Join the member program. That's the best way to stay connected with us on a deeper level every month, and to keep us going, keep the lights on. So we're building a new studio, God willing, in 2025, hopefully sooner, or sorry, 2026. I got to get used to that. Hopefully pretty soon, not too long, so you guys can stay tuned for that. All right, subscribe, guys, click those notifications and let us know in the comments what you're excited for in 2026. We'll see you next time here at the Israel Guys.